I'm standing beside this 2004 E500 Mercedes-Benz and I'm holding some filters. For those of you who own these cars, you will probably recognize these as cabin air filters. This model of Mercedes-Benz, the E-Class W211, was produced in the US market from 2003 all the way up through 2009. Generally, a lot of the parts, interchange in those model years, but one of the things that seems to be most confusing about the W211 is the subject of cabin air filters. I know because I've read on forums, I've even gone to parts suppliers. It's even been a little confusing for myself as I've tried to order the parts from my own supplier, and they don't have the right information. They're telling you, well, you need these two filters and this one, or you need the gray one, or you need the white one. And some of you are thinking, well, I know I need one of these, but what's the difference between the gray and the white one? I know one's a charcoal filter, so do I need that? Or what about these two here? I've heard there's other filters inside the car, and how do I know if my E-Class has those filters? So that's the purpose of this video. It's not about how to install these. I'm just going to try to help alleviate some confusion out there as far as which models need which filters, okay? So I'm going to go ahead first and talk about the filter that's up in the engine compartment, and then we'll talk about those models which have filters under the dash. All of the Mercedes E-Class models built for the US market from 2003 to 2009 had an intake cabin air filter located right here. No, this is not the battery. In fact, the sign here says battery in the trunk because I think this confuses people. But inside this plastic box is a filter that looks something like this. It's almost rectangular with an angled edge. And these are the same. But if you go to order a filter, you're going to find out there's two different types you can buy that go in this black box right here. Notice this is a white paper filter. This is called a pollen filter, and you'll notice here that this is a gray filter and it has some charcoal in it. So this is referred to as the combination filter. Now it's very important you get the distinction here: pollen or dust filter, combination filter, which means it's going to filter the pollen and the dust and has some charcoal in it to help with odor, okay? So which one do you need? I'm convinced, by the way, that you could probably use either one in either model and it's not going to hurt anything other than you may not get effective filtering in some of the later models. The next thing I need you to know is that from 2007 to 2009, the E-Class only had one filter right here. It did not have these two filters under the dash. So if you have an E350 or an E550, you're not going to have charcoal filters under the dash. You're going to need one of these. Keep following me here. I think you'll say, oh yeah, I get it. If it doesn't have charcoal filters under the dash, I'm going to ask you the rhetorical question, which of these do you think you need? Oh, okay, I think you got it. All right, you're going to need the combination filter up here, because in those models that don't have the under dash charcoal filters, you want a filter that has some charcoal elements in it because it's the only filter you have. How do you determine if you have these other filters under the dash? If you go online, you can get all confused. People will say, well, it's got to be from this VIN number to this VIN number, or this model, or it's only an E500, or... So if you own a W211 Mercedes E-Class and you're just totally confused by all this, there is a way to tell whether or not you're going to need those carbon active filters under the dash in your particular car. Some models have them, some don't. You got to be careful going by VIN number alone. As a general rule, all E500 models have those smaller carbon active filters under the dash. Because all E500 models have what is called thermotronic 4-zone climate control system. Now, how do you know if you have a thermotronic 4-zone? Well, it's pretty easy. You can look at the dash. The first indication here is that you're going to see you have a digital readout for the temperature controls. But you're also going to look back here at the rear of the center console between the two front seats, and you're going to see a panel back here that's also digital. So that's basically what the 4-zone is all about. You have controls right and left. For the front seat passengers, you have controls right and left back here. for the rear seat passengers, and you also have right here on the door post, you have a fresh air vent for the rear passengers. So if you have all that in your W211, okay, you're going to need 3 filters, one in the engine, and you're going to need the carbon active filters under the dash. But there were some E320s that had thermotronic climate control also. That had to be ordered special. It was the option 581 in the 2003 to 2006 E320. You could get thermotronic climate control. It was an expensive option. So you can't say that all the early models have it or only the E500 had it. And you know, you have this little switch over here. This little recirculating switch, when you push that button, it recycles it back through those 2 carbon filters under the dash. Another rhetorical question. If you have charcoal filters under your dash, like these, then which of these 2 filters are you going to need? Well, like I said earlier, I don't think it will hurt to put another charcoal filter up here. But ideally, you don't need the charcoal filter. You need the dust and pollen filter in this location because you already have the 2 charcoal filters located under the dash. Now let me show you just briefly how to access these filters. I won't be showing you the details of getting them in and out, but if you wanted to take a look under the dash, you might be able to find out. Okay, let's say you're confused, you still don't know whether you have these under dash filters. There's a way to pull that panel off and take a peek. The 2 in-cabin charcoal filters are located right under the dash, just forward of the glove box. You have to remove this panel. This is fairly easy to remove with a couple screws and it kind of snaps out. This gives you access down there. You could actually pull this panel and look down in there. If you have filters, you'll see the little doors with the little white slides there. And I've read this on a number of forums. People say, I got into the dash of my 211 and I can't see anywhere where these filters go. Well, once again, if you don't have thermotronic 4-zone climate control, that's option 581, you don't have these filters. Before I wrap up this video, I know I need to deal with the subject of replacement intervals. A lot of people ask, well, how often should these be changed? And you know, how do you know they need to be changed and so on? Of course, it's your car and you're going to make the final decision anyway. So what I'm going to share in this segment is just my own personal opinion. But I've been around filters most of my life, particularly in the type of work I've done. This has to do with, you know, these type of filters, paint respirators, okay? Now these also have charcoal activated filters in them, okay? So these are charcoal activated filters. Now people say, well, what activates them? Do you like to have to push a button? No. The activation is part of the process when the carbon is embedded into the filter material, so it's probably more correct to say these are carbon active filters. Because I know when you hear that word, well, I've got carbon activated filters under my dash, do I have to push that button? And then all of a sudden it charges them with carbon and then they light up and get all the junk out of the air. Well, you can do a lot of research about carbon active filters if you want to. But you just can't tell by looking at carbon filters that they're bad. For one thing, they're gray. They don't show the fine dust, but they certainly don't show the organic chemicals that they absorb. That's what the carbon active element of these filters does. It absorbs organic material, fumes, into the charcoal, and you can't see, oh, well, this filter looks clean to me, I don't think I need to replace it. And so when I hear things like, well, every 5 years or every 60,000 miles change your carbon filters, I think the factory even says this on some of their cars, I don't buy it. You want to know why? We wear these for safety. We're talking real safety because you're dealing with paints and harsh chemicals. Do you know what the manufacturer recommends for these carbon active filters? 40 hours. 40 hours of use, and we usually get rid of them here at the shop within a month. The other thing is they recommend, the manufacturers of these face masks recommend that you keep these carbon active filters sealed in a bag, or you'll actually shorten the life. So we're talking about these filters here that you have to breathe through for health. We're talking about these filters here that filter the air going into your car. So, you know, you might complain and say, well, these are $60 to $100, I don't want to spend the money. Once again, it's your car. It's your breathing cycle, so you're going to have to make that final decision. But I don't believe that the carbon active filter should be in the car that long. I would say you're looking at more like 1 to 2 years. I tend to replace my filters, my cabin filters, every year because I like to breathe really clean air and I don't like dust on the dash of my cars. That's, my personal opinion. But you might want to consider that. These filters, not so expensive. Once again, this is a combination filter that has carbon active material embedded in it. This is just a paper element filter for dust and pollen. So this one is cheaper. You're talking $15 to $30 for these. These are, like I said, anywhere from $60 to $100. And you're going to have to make the decision on your own. At the end of this video, I'm going to pull out the filter in this E500 that's only been in the car. It's a charcoal combination filter. I opted to just try that, try putting both filters as carbon active filters in my car here. Now it's only been in there for a little less than 2 years. The car has only driven 12,000 miles. That's right, I don't drive my cars that much because I have more than one, to put it mildly. So I hope that's helpful. I know I'm not going to be able to answer specifically how long. You're going to have to make that decision. But I'll tell you, I know one thing, they don't get changed often enough. Well, here's the evidence. I just pulled this out. I replaced this combination filter here in this E500 with the paper element pollen filter, and I'm going to take a look at the performance of that over the next year. Now take a look at the backside. See that? That's what it should look like if it's brand new. You look at this, you think, well, that's not too bad until you start pulling these flutes apart. Look at how dirty that is. Look at the amount of dust that's collected. I wish I could take this to a lab and actually have the charcoal active elements tested to see whether they're still able to even absorb some odors. So this is at 12,000 miles, folks. Imagine what this filter would look like at 20, 30, 40, or 50,000 miles. So I hope you've learned in this video it doesn't have to be all that confusing. It really comes down to looking inside your car and seeing what kind of climate control you have. And that's going to pretty much tell you what filters you need to order. Now, if you need instructions, specific step-by-step instructions on how to install these yourself, we carry all these filters on my website, and they will come with free video instructions that I've done to help you get them installed yourself and save quite a bit of money.